rewatch this movie again today. It's wonderful. Happy 25th anniversary on such a terrific, terrific film.
I didn't know that.
So my first question is for Charlie. The story I've always heard is that you are working as a writer on Chris Elliott's series, Get a Life, and during a break during that series, you write the first draft of this screenplay. That's the story I've always heard.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
accurate? Is that actually what?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was curious. Different versions of the story I've heard is that you want to tell a story about a man having an affair, but also you had this idea about a portal separately, and you combined them. I'm curious. Is that really the origin of being John Malkovich?
It is. It's the origin. Yeah. I had a writing partner when I first was out of college, and I found that there was a sort of a surprise that came from the back and forth of the two different brains, and I felt kind of stuck, and I was thinking, well, if I force myself into a second story, I don't know where it's going to go, and it'll surprise me. And I had these two ideas, so I kind of jammed them together, and that's what came with this.
Because I'm really interested in the portal idea, because you've always said that John Malkovich, the character, the actor, was not the initial idea, but was this idea of just the idea of being able to get out of your own head and go into someone else's? Was that sort of the idea that sort of drew you to this?
I mean, that was the idea, but it was always John Malkovich.
Yeah.
As soon as I came up with that, it was going to be Malkovich. I never veered from Malkovich.
In the stories I've always heard is that you also just like, in the scene where Malkovich goes into his head and says, Malkovich, 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 you just liked that sound. How was it also because you felt like he was the right sort of actor to embody this idea, or how did John Malkovich come into your head, I guess?
I mean, I really like John Malkovich as an actor, and I'll preface it by saying that. But there is an oddness to him, and I think that there's a kind of something in his eyes that makes him unknowable. So I could imagine there might be somebody looking out, and I couldn't think of anyone else. And yes, the name was very important. The name is funny to me. And I also didn't, I knew I wanted him to go into his own portal, and I didn't know what that would lead to. And I just, the idea of everything being Malkovich and everyone saying Malkovich seemed like the solution, although I didn't quite know why. But people seemed to like it, so I felt vindicated.
For Catherine, you had been acting, you were an Indie Spirit nominee by this point. You had done a ton of different work. I'm curious, in terms of reading this script, does an agent or a manager say, so it's about people who go into John Malkovich's head? How much advanced sort of understanding of what the script was before you read it?
I don't think that anybody understood it. So I read it, and I thought, this is amazing. Who's Charlie Kaufman? What's the matter with it? But I just thought it was just so new and fun, and it really warranted a lot of openness, which is always kind of what you want to get into. And I just felt so lucky to get this job. Like, I never thought I would get this job. In fact, when I went in, I just thought, I tried to tell Spike I wasn't right for this part, that I really should be Lottie. and he was kind of, no, let's just see what happens. But yeah, I was super embarrassed to do this part, because I thought it was, I don't know, it was sort of like some of the crew sort of, I felt like they didn't like Maxine. It's for real. And you don't really want that when you're working.
And you've mentioned this before. I read an interview, I think, at the time when Being John Malkovich came out, that you said that people said that the quote I had was that some members of the crew said, yeah, Maxine's not my type.
She's not my type. That's what I heard, and I
Oh,
thought,
really? Wow.
yeah, no, it's some of Lance's people.
My type.
I'm interested in this idea, though, that Spike Jonze, the director, that you said, I don't know if was it that you just felt more comfortable playing the line?
No, I just thought I would never get this job because I thought it was, I don't know, I just didn't think that I would get that part. I just thought, no, it's great, but I'm not right for it. And I really tried to convince him of that. But he just sort of, and in fact, when I auditioned for it, I auditioned twice, once with Spike and another time with Spike. But I just was nervous and I didn't want anybody else in the room, and people wanted to be in the room, and I was like, no, let's just you and me. So he was reading the other part, so he would look down and miss what I was doing. and then I felt incredibly lucky, but I thought, I'm lost, and I just, I took every rejection so seriously, and I was, it was a vulnerable part, to me anyway,
He read so many people for Maxine, and he couldn't find anybody who could do it. He was looking for what Catherine brought to it, and when he told me he found her, it was like, yes, this is it. So,
Thanks, Charlie.
I'm curious, if you remember, what was the thing that the other actors were missing? What did Catherine sort of understand about Maxine that maybe other people who auditioned just didn't get?
Well, I don't want to cast aspersions, but I mean, I do think that there was a kind of a more of a sort of glamour, actressy kind of thing that wasn't. Catherine brings something very real to the role she plays, and I think that there's a strength there that was necessary for that character. She doesn't give a shit, and you have to feel that that's true. It's not like it's not a seduction that she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, the seduction thing, I think, was probably, it was tempting to play that a lot. But I didn't really feel qualified to do that. Like, I didn't think I was good at that. So whatever, I found my own way.
Charlie, like a script like this, screenwriting classes, screenwriting courses would say, like, there's so many reasons why you don't write this. And I'm curious, at the point in your career where you're just like, I'm writing this for myself. I'm writing this so I can show people what I can do. I don't care if this movie gets made. Or was there any part of your mind when you first started writing the script where you're like, no, I can see this movie getting made?
No, I didn't think it was going to get made. I mean, I didn't have any sort of, like, no one knew who I was.
Yeah.
I was trying to write a sample, but I was also trying to write something that I felt was good, so I wasn't going to try to follow a formula or anything. These ideas seemed good to me, and I got a lot of positive reaction from the script, but everybody said it would never be made. And that seemed to be the truth for quite a while until somehow it fell into Spike's hands.
And I'm curious, the idea of people saying, yeah, this is good, but no one's ever going to make this. Was that disappointing to you? Or
I didn't have any expectations at the time, but it was puzzling to me, because people would say things. I remember one executive said that I keep this on my night table and I read it every night because it makes me laugh, but nobody will ever make this. I mean, that was the conventional wisdom from everyone. And I think Spike had a little cachet at the time, or a lot, because of his video career, that and he was with propaganda, and Steve Golan was supporting him, and this is what he wanted to do. So Golan said, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm really interested because, as Catherine, you sort of alluded to, this is Spike Jonze' first feature. Obviously, he's done music videos and commercials, so people know him a little bit, but still, you're making your first feature. This is your first produced screenplay.
First written.
Yeah, it's like, had you, I'm curious, for even having Spike involved, were there a lot of hoops to sort of jump through? Or was it, when Spike was on, then this movie had a chance?
It didn't cost a lot, and it kind of fell through the cracks. The company that was producing it sort of fell under and it got acquired by another company while we were making it. So nobody was, minding the store. Nobody watched it from the studio or whatever the production company. And so it just sort of it was fortuitous.
Because, like I said, when I remember watching this movie when it came out in 1989, like I saw it opening night, I remember thinking, like, there are so many things I cannot believe that he got to make, that they got to put in this. Was there anything in the original script, whether because of budgets or just logistics, that was just too fanciful, not possible, that you had to cut out from the film? Because the things you have in the film are so remarkable.
No, but the third act of the original script is very, very different. And that was a change more because Spike felt he didn't like, well, I don't know if he didn't like it, but it sort of flies off into some kind of chaos. The devil is in it, and giant puppets, and the world is destroyed, and the whole world is painted gray, and Lottie marries Elijah the chimp. And I like that ending. So we had to do a lot of sort of weird reverse engineering to kind of make this new version, the ending, work.
You mentioned the puppets. One of the other things I love about the movie is that, obviously the John Cusack character, he's a puppeteer, but the movie does not make fun of that. And there's such beauty in the puppetry in this movie. I was curious, what drew you to that being his art? And did you know puppeteers? Did you do research into them? Because that world is taken so seriously, where in a lesser movie, that would have been like the butt of the joke the entire time.
Well, I mean, the original joke was that it was taken seriously. But in order to do that, you have to take it seriously. You have to have beautiful puppetry, which I always intended to. And there was a guy, and I'm forgetting his name now. There was this amazing puppeteer, and I'm really sorry that I'm forgetting his name, but he had appeared on, Jim Henson had like a show outside of the Muppets where he introduced different puppeteers, and this guy did this really beautiful, delicate work. I remember one of the scenes he did was like a woman from like the mid 19th century sitting at a table writing a letter, and the gestures and just everything was so delicate and so beautiful. And that's where I got the idea for Greg. That's what I was hoping we could accomplish with our marionettes. Yeah. Obviously, it's more difficult. These were raw puppets, but.
Catherine, my understanding is that the original script did not have a lot of description in terms of who the characters were or who they looked like. And so I'm curious, in terms of building the character yourself, we talked a little bit about the vulnerability and sort of understanding Maxine, but in terms of costume, hair, the way she talked, all of that stuff, because it seemed like Charlie gave you the space, and it sounds like also maybe Spike gave you the space to kind of create that character and build it up a little bit. So I'm curious to hear about that.
Well, I mean, the script was, I was led her to the script because I couldn't improve it at all. I mean, I was perfect. And I think, Spike does this thing where he's like, he'll send Casey to somebody's house and Casey's the wardrobe costume designer, and he'll go through our closets and we'll end up wearing our own clothes sometimes. But the clothes had a lot to do with it because I really didn't know. Like, I had ideas for what Maxine would look like, and everybody was, I remember you were like, no.
Oh, really?
Yes. It was more like, I don't know, kind of, it's more freakish. I just didn't honestly know what to do. But these guys just, just said, let it all just go. And then I worked with one of the actors was not that into me. So, yeah, no, it's true. But it was fine. It was fine. I mean, I was at the point I was kind of agreeing, like I don't like her either. But so, but that kind of, because there was this rejection involved, it made me feel like, oh yeah, well, fuck me, fuck you, kind of thing. And it really freed me up a little bit because there wasn't a lot of love from just a couple of people. I mean, we all loved each other. It was amazing.
Disregard everything she just said.
I just said, oh my God, I haven't done one of these in a long time. No, you know what I was thinking though when you said, about these. I was thinking of the orchids and the way that you were talking about puppetry and that kind of.
Yeah, I really wanted to do that with that movie. I was so amazed by the descriptions in the Susan Orlean book that I just wanted to do something with it. I had no idea what, but
it did have that same sort of quality of the puppets, that kind of attention, and in a kind of your mind's blown way. What is this?
I think that the two movies would also connect, like you were saying, Charlie, is that it's the people who do it take it probably too seriously, and there's something that's funny about that. But there's also something that's kind of, at least from my mind in terms of thinking of your films, you look at it as, they probably do take it too seriously, but taking art seriously is worth it. That there is, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's tricky because I did think it was funny. It wasn't funny that they took it seriously to me. It was funny that in this version of the world, everybody took it seriously. And then I wanted to take it seriously, in the movie. But it wasn't really mocking the puppeteers as much as it was kind of an alternate reality that I imagined.
For both of you, this is also your first Oscar nomination, this movie. And for Charlie, I was curious because this is when you're first doing interviews where people are asking you to explain your movie. And as your career goes on, you will be continued to be asked, what does this mean? What does this mean? Were you prepared when Being John Malkovich came out and it got the reception that it did of now we're going to ask the writer to dissect and explain every little thing?
I mean, I don't know if I was prepared, but I started at that point saying I'm not going to explain the movie.
Yeah.
And I've been consistent with that to this day.
Yeah.
And not just because, I'm being obstinate, but because it's not my movie. I wrote it and audiences watch it and they should be able to think what they think about it. There's no point in my dictating what they think about it. I did my job, and then the movie exists in the interaction between the audience member's brain and the brains of the people who made it. It doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah. Because for me also, like this movie and the movies you've made since then, people will ascribe like philosophical readings to it, or in this movie there's obviously social commentary, I think that's kind of also going on. But for you as a writer, are you thinking about what are these themes I'm writing? Is this part of the discovery process in terms of writing it? I don't imagine that you're somebody who's writing a movie because you're trying to send a message. But I'm curious if the messages or the ideas of what this is I'm writing, what this thing I'm wrestling with, do they sort of come to you as you are writing, like, oh, this is a movie about this, and this is a movie about these things?
Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes I just like the idea, and I don't really know why. I think, oh, that's interesting, or that kind of excites me. I should sort of explore that. I do a lot of sort of dream logic in the stuff I write, and I have that reaction to my dreams where I don't like, this is really affecting me, but I don't entirely know why, and I trust that, because that's really all I have, is like, does it affect me? Not thinking about, will it affect somebody else? And then assuming at some point somebody somewhere is going to have similar chemistry in their brain to me and have some reaction to it.
For both of you, like you said, Charlie, this is Spike's directing this movie, but in terms of the actual day-to-day shooting, were you on sets? How is, would people ask you about questions about the script or their characters, or what was that? I'm curious in terms of the actual making of this movie, how involved were you?
I don't know, Catherine can answer that for her. I don't remember people asking me anything. I think I might have been a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Shy. but in my shyness, I think it might have kept people away from me, because they didn't want to scare me.
No, I think it wasn't a matter of scare. I think we didn't want to, scare ourselves. It was clear that Charlie was some sort of new, captivating thing. And, I was kind of intimidated by the whole thing, if I haven't made that clear. I was, but what you said about you trusting something, did you just say trust? Yes. No, despite all of my apprehension, I do feel that they kind of instilled in me a sense of being able to trust that, and it was what it's not what I perceived that they wanted, but it was what they wanted, and I just didn't know, so it got more comfortable as I went on.
When you shot the scene with the film, the training film,
Yeah.
remember that?
Yes.
Was that shot early? Do you remember?
You mean with John?
When you with John in that room and that.
Yeah, that was early. Why did I seem nervous?
No, the opposite. I was going to say that it cemented who Maxine was for me. Just the way you were sitting. Yeah.
I remember with John, he was sitting on. I was sitting on the dolly, and giving him off camera, feeding him the lines, and I couldn't. I think he was sort of done with. We'd done my side for a long time, so he wasn't. I don't think I could impact him anymore. So I just sort of said this thing from 4th grade when I got in trouble at Catholic school that made him laugh.
What did you say?
Oh, I can't say it.
You can punt if you want. It's okay.
I know. It was, I can't. It's going to offend people.
I don't think this audience would be offended, Catherine. It's
Okay,
just entirely up to you.
I mean, remember, 4th grade Catholic school. Okay, Jesus Christ Almighty, a mouse friend of my nighty. Yeah, my Ted made me shit, Jesus Christ Almighty.
I think a couple Hail Marys, you'll be fine.
I'm sorry, yeah. But anyway, he laughed.
Yeah, we all did too. I'd love to open up to the audience. We will have a microphone coming around, so people can just be patient. Let's start with the gentleman in the hat right there. Yeah, with the hat, no, right there. Sorry.
Thanks for being here. I was just curious, some of your earlier films, if they've evolved for you at all, of just, I don't know, particular moments, or a particular film, or a particular moment, or a line in one of your films, if it resonates with you now differently than when you were writing it, or when you were on set, or in the editing bay? Just
I haven't watched them in a long time, so I don't really have that experience. I'm sorry to say. I didn't watch this one today. So.
I'm right behind him, also in the hat.
Yeah. Hi. I'm curious. There's a truism about both writing and acting that the more outlandish the premise, the more grounded you want it to be. The more, you don't play it for laughs. You don't write it for laughs. I'm curious whether that was part of the conversation around this film, because it works emotionally. No matter how funny and out there it is, we are grounded in the relationships.
I mean, I don't know if it was a conversation that they had on set, but it was certainly a conversation that I have in the set of my head. Yeah, I mean, people in a comedy don't know they're in a comedy. They have to have real relationships and real emotional interactions, or else it's sort of garbage, I think.
Yeah, I think it's imperative that you feel the way the story is. Like, you just really, with Charlie's work, always approach acting that way, that it's as real as it gets. And it feels that way too. I mean, you kind of make the leap, like, this is real. And that's just what he's, if I may say, he's a very kind, funny person. And you can see that, you can read that and feel that from his movies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, right here in the glasses, right there.
Hi, I don't know how involved you were in the casting process, but I'm curious what John Malkovich's response was to finding out about this whole film. If Spike was more involved with that, or if you heard it through the grapevine. I'm just kind of curious because it's so outstanding and brilliant. And I mean, I would be shocked if I was John Malkovich.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've told this story, but I'll tell it again. I wrote this script several years before Spike discovered it, and it got to John Malkovich somehow. And I got a call from his business partners, film production company partner, who wanted to meet with me. They were very interested in talking to me. And so we had this conversation. I met with him, and then at some point, sort of very polite and everything, he said, and why the 7.5 floor? And I said, I don't know, I thought it was a funny idea to have a half floor. And he said, do you know that John's address is 7.5, whatever? And I did not know that. And he didn't believe me. It was clear that they were basically checking me out. And then some years passed, and then Spike got involved, and he went to, I think he was in France or went to France to meet with Malkovich, and Malkovich was
Portugal.
Was it Portugal?
It might have been.
Might have been Portugal. Could have been Italy. And Malkovich really liked it. He didn't want it to be about him. He wanted to play the Craig part, and he thought it could be about somebody else. He was worried about what it would do to his career. Either way, if it was a disaster or a success, he was afraid it was going to ruin his career. And I could understand that concern, but eventually he met with me and Spike together, and he decided he trusted us, and then once he was in, he was in. He just make him more of an asshole, he would say, at certain points when he was doing scenes, like make him more ridiculous. So he was great. He was really great. I certainly owe my career to him. Well,
I mean, kind of.
yeah.
All the way in the back. Sorry. in the back.
Keep going.
Hi, thank you for being here with us today. I'm really curious about the editing process of this. Is there any point that you have to kind of explain to the editor, like how this works? Because it's really complicated script. Thank you.
No, it was pretty, it was pretty sort of straightforward, I think, except for one scene. And I remember the scene number because it was such a disaster for us. It was scene 100, and it is the scene where Orson Bean is explaining how the portal works, and it's all of this pipe, and it was just like trying to figure out how to do that, because that was at a point where the original script didn't have any of that. It was this other thing that I explained earlier about the devil and everything, and this was kind of like a new idea and had all of these rules that had to be put forward, and we worked on that scene forever, and it always felt really awkward, and interestingly, I did see this movie like maybe, I don't know, 10 years after it came out, and that scene just sort of went by. It was like, I was so focused on that being so awful, and it's just nothing, so there was a lesson there. I don't know what the lesson is. Everything else seemed pretty straightforward.
Right here in the center, right there. Yeah.
Hi, my question is for Catherine. You talked during this Q&A about your insecurity approaching the character, but I was here the other night watching Cinematheque New York. You were amazing in that as well, but the characters obviously share quite a bit of that old self-interest. So I'm wondering if the reception of this film and your performance in it gave you a little more confidence approaching that type of role again, or if it was just a new challenge every time.
I don't mean to say that I was so insecure. I just really felt like I wasn't right. I thought that Cameron should play Maxine and I should play Lottie if I was going to get the job. But I didn't think that I was going to get Lottie because Spike told me that I was.
That's a good clue.
Yeah, it was a good clue. I was like, no, I don't see it. I don't really. It definitely gave me insight into kind of Charlie's world. Do you know what I mean? So even because of the experience, I felt more comfortable. And I mean, Cinematheque was so amazing. What an amazing movie. And then I got to work with so many great women actors, and how often do you see all these powerhouses just playing with each other? And it was something. And of course, Philip, who was, off the charts in that. So, it might have given me, I'm sure that everything builds your confidence until it's shot down by this business. But I mean, if you look at it in terms of just trying to honor whatever that person you're playing is, however hideous or whatever, you just kind of want to go, okay, I just want to be sort of as true as I can. And the story. And then you just hopefully find your way with guidance from the director or the writer, the people who know.
I just want to add that I think, kind of on paper, Adele, character Catherine played in Cinematheque, might be awful, but I believe that Catherine brought a warmth to her and a humanity to her that deepened her, and that's how I feel about her. Is the version that Catherine delivered.
Thanks, Charlie.
I cannot thank you both enough for being here tonight. And thank you for the great audience questions. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So much.
Yes,